So, with each new Yu-Gi-Oh, I like to take a few minutes and just explain and talk about the things I'm hoping for with the show. The things I hope it will get right, and the ways I think it can succeed, and overall be looked at back fondly. But things are a little bit different this time around. You see, this time we're like 5 episodes in at the time of this recording. So when making this list, I have more things to take in consideration besides just, oh, I'd like for this to happen. No, this time around, we kind of have a little bit of an idea of what the show has in store for us, and that is a little concerning. But I am now just going to take a few minutes and explain how I think it can maybe kind of get back on track, do things right, and become an overall great show. Or it does none of this, finds its footing, and works out anyways. Because that's the fun of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is it's always just this weird chemical concoction that you never quite know what you're going to get. And that could very well happen here, just like it fucking happened on the last one. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get to speculating. So starting things off, we have the thing that stands out most about this Yu-Gi-Oh! For a lot of people, and that is its concept. For the first time in Yu-Gi-Oh! History, we have aliens. Yeah, the protagonist is a literal extraterrestrial, and with that comes a lot. There's a lot of interesting things you can do with this. There's a lot of ways it can go wrong. But above all else, I think it's a neat idea, and so far, I like Yugioh. I like the idea that he's just trying to find a home for his people and believe that duels can help him with that. I like that there is a MIB organization that is presented as competent and knows what they're doing. It makes the world feel much more fleshed out than a lot of similar franchises doing this kind of storyline. But I also feel like the show hasn't really used this to carve out as unique a image as I was hoping it would by now. Namely, i.e. with Yugioh himself. I don't feel like he's the one moving the story forward. It's just kind of like crap's happening around him. I don't really feel like you see him learning about our world more. I don't feel like you're learning a ton about his people. You literally had it in the first episode. He lasers a telephone, and he doesn't learn from it because it's the same thing to a washing machine. I want to see them really progress things and take advantage of everything their story has to offer, so it's not all just sitting there on the table making us feel bad that they didn't do anything with it. So for number 4, I want a bad guy. I want a legit villain again. It has been a long time since we've had a great Yu-Gi-Oh! Villain, which sucks because for me, Yu-Gi-Oh! Villains are some of the most interesting, iconic, fun baddies in all of anime, and a lot of people do agree with this sentiment. So when you go through Sevens, and one of its worst aspects is that there is no real baddie, even the final baddie, Evil Yugioh, didn't really do that much, you kind of just find yourself longing. I want someone like a Lightning or a Vector, just someone who is fun, who's creepy, who's exciting, and who's also interesting and acts as a good foil to the protagonist and does a good job of conveying the show's ideas and making me feel threatened or scared or invested in what's going on. Yu-Gi-Oh! Does that really well, and I think it's about time we get back to it. So coming up next is a weird one, because on the one hand, I feel like this shouldn't have to go here, but the more I thought about it, it kind of does, and that is just the duels themselves. Make them interesting. Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, I really liked the duels. A lot of them were fun, they were creative, they were unique. Everyone did the best they could with what they had and gave us some really fun, just Yu-Gi-Oh! Style shonen nonsense because of it. Here, though, we're already starting to see a bit of a regression. So the first episode was very much treated like the jumping on point, as it logically should. And all the first duel was a tutorial literally teaching Yugioh the basics of Yu-Gi-Oh! Okay, well, let's compare this to the first episode of Sevens, where he fucking OTK'd! The first duel in 7 shows us how intelligent and resourceful Yuga can be, how even if he often can be a little bit overwhelmed or not sure what's going to happen next, he can think on his feet and come up with a way to solve things. All the first episode of Go Rush taught us to do was you summon and you attack, and that's it. All right, what about the next duel? Oh, you tribute summon and you attack, and monsters have effects too. Okay, and that's kind of the pattern the duels so far have. They're not making them unique. They're not really fitting the character's personality. It's just kind of tutorial. Why? You can work in little things like how spells works or how trap works, but this show literally just wastes a lot of time sitting there and explaining the very basics to you. And it feels kind of insulting to the audience, and it just feels like a complete waste of time, and it's just boring. I don't care about anything going on in these duels. The most recent one was a bit more interesting because now they're using cards, but what's next? I gotta sit through a 15-minute of fusion? Do I have to go through everything all over again of never getting to see anything cool till like 50 some odd episodes in? I want to feel like the duels are just this like extension of the characters and how they handle things, not just this is a card. That's it. So coming in at number 2 is once again something that Sevens failed at, and that is plot. Which is weird because I'm always the guy talking about characters. And don't get me wrong, I loved the Yu-Gi-Oh characters in Sevens and that they had so much focus. But I want Go Rush to feel different. I want it to be unique. And one of the ways I think it can be is have just more of an involved plot. Have more of an interesting thing going on. You have the ideas there. You have the plot threads set up, so weave me something interesting. You have an interesting idea of Yugioh's main rival, or just our first villain in general, being his former father figure. That could be really interesting, but then the way they threw the guy in there was just random and didn't really feel impactful at all. They didn't take advantage of anything to make it feel that interesting. So my kind of worry is that in their attempt to make this feel different from Sevens, will they kind of miss the point and the plot's going to feel more brains, and we don't want that ever again. So yeah, this one is definitely another hard one to tell, but all in all, just give me a story that makes me want to keep seeing what happens next, but also weaves the characters in correctly. That's how most storytelling is supposed to work. I don't want this feeling of one or the other again. Do what you're supposed to do and have it all feel like one cohesive piece. So last but not least, we have the one thing that if it succeeds at this, I can live with everything else. And that is make the characters work. It's as simple as that. Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens had, for me, the best cast of characters that this franchise ever had. And do I think I need this one to do better? No. But make them unique. Make them interesting. Make them fun. Make them have their own identities. All of these things is what makes great characters. I don't think every character needs to be super relatable. I don't think they need to be an audience surrogate. But I need them to be interesting. I need a reason to want to come back. And so far, we have some ideas for characters that are interesting. I've said multiple times now what I like about Yugioh. The twins are more likable than I thought they would. The one rival who has the cat is actually a bit more fun, and I want to see more of what happens with him. The Chupacabra is neat. I think, like I said, the idea of the other potential big baddie could be really interesting. But, as I keep saying, so far we haven't gotten that. Like I said, Yugioh really isn't developing as a character much. I don't want the twins to just be like catchphrases and they do cool shit off screen, which is a big problem. And I want the rivals and villains to be interesting and fleshed out and creative. If you can succeed at good characters, you'd be surprised how much people will forgive. Look at the MCU. Not every Marvel movie is great. Some of the more recent ones have been downright bad. But because you normally can get invested in the characters, it's why you care and why people didn't care about Eternals very much. But yeah, that's my list. And like I said, it might not do any of these and figure out a way to be interesting, because in the hands of the right storytellers, anything can be interesting. And after Sevens, this team, I think, have proven they know how to tell good stories. We just need to make sure now that in their attempt to be different from the last one, they don't end up falling into a trap like many Yu-Gi-Ohs have fallen into before. But what are your thoughts on what the show can do right or wrong, or what you hope for? Give me those in the comments section below. Maybe the show's doing everything right for you, in which case tell me that too. But as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join me as we see what works out and what doesn't.